Good day out there to all my listeners. I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host, Cassandra, Crawley, Mayo. And for those new listeners out there, let me share a bit about what this podcast is about. Actually, it's for individuals. Well, let me tell you this. This is who I serve. I actually serve purpose-driven women to get out of their way and live a more meaningful, spirit aligned lives that you were born for by guiding you through transformational self discovery rooted in real talk, faith, and purpose. So, for example, there's certain things you've always wanted to do. You know, within your heart of hearts, you're supposed to write a book. You're supposed to get out of a relationship. You're supposed to start being, you want to become an entrepreneur, start a business, but it's just something that you cannot move. It's like you're just stuck in it, right? So this is basically what this is about. And we talk about topics related to personal development, self-improvement, and also it will enable you to start reflecting over things in your life. And I always am prayerful that one of these podcasts will give you what I call a aha and say, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to move. I'm going to take this move. I'm going to get unstuck. I'm going to get the help I need or whatever I need to make this happen. And so today, headline, we're going to talk about the power of becoming, your identity, your story, and self-worth. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you're wearing a mask to survive the day? Well, I have a guest on, and her name is Brandy, and I'm going to introduce you in a minute. But Brandy did too, and so did I. So now she helps women remove that mask for good. Her story is a raw, real look at how we break free from who we think we're supposed to be. So now listen, now on Is Your Way in Your Way? And I like to welcome Brandy Douglas Corcoran. Hi, Brandy.
Hi, Cassandra. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. I'm just looking forward to our discussion about becoming, identity, story, and self-worth. Okay, so my before we get started, I like to read your bio just a little bit so my listeners will have a point of reference, like what qualifies you to do this type of work. So let me go dive into this bio. Brandy is a transformation strategist, spiritual psychologist, and founder of Finding Self Coach. And she also has a book titled that. With over 30 years in leadership, psychology, and personal growth, Brandy empowers women to dismantle limiting beliefs and rewrite the narratives that keep them stuck. Once a self described drama queen and burned out mom, she now guides others from pain to purpose using her signature 7-step empowerment process. Her raw authenticity and deeply empathetic approach creates a safe space for breakthroughs because she knows what it's like to crave more from life and believe you are not enough. I bet a lot of you, when you heard that, you were like, yeah, I need to hear what Brandy has to say. Oh, Brandy, I want you to describe what was happening in your life that necessitated you to crave more from life and believe you're not enough. What was going on in your backstory? What happened?
That is a big, big question. um, I think the first thing I just want to say is I've heard you read that bio. What was present for me is at one point when that was written, even that
Uh-huh.
wasn't the truth. That wasn't my story. That was
Oh,
kind of the North Star. The if I were
okay.
to believe, and that's really what I work with people is creating an empowered identity and belief. So if I were to tell myself a really good story about who I want to be, what would that be? And as I
Um,
was listening to you, I'm like, you know what's cool is now that is my truth. That is my
oh,
story. So it's
okay.
neat to see that we can live into that. as far as what was happening in the past, I mean, sadly, I think it's not unfamiliar to many people's stories of
Mm.
instances of sexual trauma, abuse, um, just that feeling of self-doubt. And you know,
Mm.
I could tell you the stories that I say are good subject lines,
Yeah.
right? Like the the drama queen stuff,
Yeah.
and that's all very valid, and that is my story. The thing is, if I look below, the commonality I think your listeners will see is it's not the what happened, and this is what people say about trauma. It's my response, the story I made up, the
Mm.
meaning I gave it, the
Mm.
identity. Well, this must mean this about me if that could happen. So as traumatic and horrible as some of the subject lines I could tell you were happening, it's all the stuff that happened in between and below the surface that said that must be proof that I'm unlovable. That must be
Mm.
proof that I don't matter. That must be proof that the world's a confusing place and I don't fit in.
Mm.
And that's the stuff that I talk to my clients, my readers, is the water I was swimming in. It wasn't that I had this belief. It wasn't that I felt unlovable. It was what was so. It was the water I was swimming in. And
Huh.
that really just flavored and dictated how my life would turn out.
Well, let me ask you, the water that you were swimming in,
Hmm.
what were you? I mean, those thoughts and those feelings came from something.
Absolutely.
Uh, yeah, and I always say, and I have a chapter in my book, Is Your Way in Your Way for my new listeners. That's the name of my book, as it is the name of my podcast. But I always say your childhood has so much to do with your adulthood.
Yes.
And and when you get in that good space, that safe space, you're like, okay, all right, that's what happened, but that's not who I am today. So what happened in your life for you to have that stinking thinking?
Yeah. So one of the experiences that I can look back on that had the most fundamentally impactful result in my life was that experience. I always say, like, when we're about 5 or 6, you're just
Uh-huh.
kind of like riding your bike, playing with your dolls,
Uh-huh.
doing your thing.
Right.
And it's that moment that happens where it was like, whoa, wait, something's wrong. And
Mm.
because as children, we're so egocentric, if something is wrong out here, that must mean something is wrong in here. And
Okay.
so it becomes not just the what's happening, but it becomes internal. So for me, that big event, and I do write about it in my book, but the big event was I was molested when I was 6 by a younger, like a teenager, like 12, 14-year-old boy.
Hmm.
And as awful and traumatic as like that would be, at 6, I didn't know that was
Right.
inappropriate. I didn't know that was trauma.
Hmm.
But what really hurt was outside of these moments, he would rally people to pick on me. They would tease me. They would set me up.
Hmm.
They would make fun of me.
Yeah.
And in that, it was that belief that developed about I don't matter, because if I mattered, how could I be treated this way? And that
Hmm.
was very confusing. To
Yeah.
unpack that at 6 just was impossible. So it also became that the world is confusing. And
Mm.
then throughout my life, I see, again, it happened when I was 11 with a babysitter. It happened again when I was 16, 22, different scenarios like that, that just reinforced that I really didn't matter, that I was here
Right.
to be used, to be
Yeah.
taken from, to be ridiculed, to be put down.
Hmm.
And I took all that on as
Yeah.
evidence for what I felt based on when I was
Sure.
6. And that was
Sure.
really a confusing experience.
So
Yeah.
is that why you labeled yourself as the drama queen?
I
Or
think
did you label yourself
I
that?
did not. That is a good catch because so one of my beliefs is that to survive something, we take on this way of being. And it actually comes from Landmark Worldwide Education. And at 6, to survive this experience that I don't matter and the world's confusing, one of the ways of being I took on was dramatic. So I can flare up anything. And I mean, as you see me, it's not that it's a negative, it's a part of my way of being. And it was also something that was given to me, as that's what you said. Like, was that something that you decided? It was just confirmed by other people. And I think that's one of the difficult parts about finding self, getting our identity. And the way, like you, I love the name of your podcast, Is Your Way in Your Way. I was
Mhm.
thinking about that, and it was like, it made a lot of sense to me, because I find people can be really disloyal to their, or loyal to their dysfunction, and
Right.
thus in their own way with that. And a lot of the things that I identified with, I would describe myself with as, came from well-meaning teachers, parents, family members who would tell me who I was
Hmm.
or would
Who,
describe me.
yeah. What did they say you were? Like, just name a couple things
Oh,
they would say.
crazy like a fox,
Okay.
crazy Bran, right? So it all had to do with, and I love Jamie Kern Lima talks about this. She says, "You're not crazy, you're just first." And I
Oh.
didn't know that then, but I was the first in my family to really have emotional awareness, to be very emotionally expressive. All the
Okay.
things that were being labeled as dramatic
Yeah.
were the first. We didn't do that in our family. I'm
Oh,
51, so put that
right.
into reference for, depending on your listeners, what age they are. That just wasn't what you did. You just swept it under the rug. You just powered through. You made
Mhm.
fun of yourself. And I remember the quote was, "If you can't laugh at yourself in this family, you won't survive." And
Mm,
right, and I was like, that didn't sit right.
right.
When it didn't sit right with, at least that was verbalizing it. So
Right. So you wore a mask. It's just like, yeah, you wore a mask to hide your identity.
yeah, I played
Which,
that. I played the part that was given to me, and the part that my little 6-year-old brain decided I was.
uh-huh,
And
uh-huh.
you're right, that became my identity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now tell us, share a pivotal moment that reshaped your identity.
Oh, of course, as anyone, there are a few, right?
Okay.
Um, I think those little moments along the way are finding the people in your life that just love on you and lift you up and say the things that it's like that, hold on to my belief until you have it for yourself.
Okay.
And my best friend, we've been best friends since we were 15 in grade 10. She has always been that person for me,
Uh-huh.
that really has lifted up and held me up. um, I think the thing is, along the way, I didn't love how I was living. I was living into it. And it wasn't until probably my divorce 7 years ago
Mm-hmm.
where I realized, like, I didn't like how I was doing life and who I was being, regardless of what was happening, regardless of what he did or why we ended, or I
Mm-hmm.
had to sit with myself. And
Right.
I realized, like, some of the actions I was doing and some of the ways I was being weren't anything I ever thought I wanted. And it stole a little piece of myself each time I lied, each time I, um, you know, was like dishonoring to myself in any kind of way, or anytime I just shut up and took it, or yeah,
Mhm.
it wasn't aligned with what I felt inside.
Well, let me ask you, how do you identify yourself now? Who
Mm.
who who is Brandy?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I love that your focus is on identity, because that's one of my beliefs as well. Is, and Tony
Mhm.
Robbins speaks about it, but that one of our human natures is that we need to remain consistent with our identity, with who we
Mhm.
say we are. I think the hard part is when we're not even aware of who we say we are, or like I said, that it's the water we swim in, that we have
Mhm.
a choice, that I can change that.
Mhm.
So the person
Mhm.
that I say I am today is someone who values being authentic, values kindness, and at the same time, I know I can also shut that down and be unkind if needed. And
Mhm.
there's a really great story in my book about that. That was one of those transformational moments where me identifying as kind, but identifying as kind because I had to be, because what drove me was being a people pleaser and having people's love. So I was kind to a fault, where it was like my boundaries, my safety, all of that, what I needed didn't
Mhm.
matter if
Yeah.
somebody else's needs came first. So yes, I still value kind, and I still would describe myself as a kind person. And I can also stop, as I've had to do recently, when people are treating me a certain way. So it's not driven by people pleasing. It's driven by a value of kindness, and that's who I say I am.
Okay.
Even
Okay.
in situations now where people aren't aren't showing up, aren't being kind, I will still respond in the way that I would respond, because I
Yeah.
refuse to let people change who I now say I am. because
Okay.
my identity has shifted from being the drama queen, right, the crazy one, um, the descriptions that people have given me, to an identity that I've claimed,
hmm
that
So
I
it's,
say.
yeah. So it sounds like a lot of this comes from awareness. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
when you were talking, I thought about a therapist that I have. And one of the things she asked me was, "Do you like yourself?" And I was like,
It's a big
hmm.
question.
Yeah. And I said, yeah. She said, "Well, I tell you what I'd like for you to do." And I'm saying this to my listeners as well.
Mm,
Write a letter to yourself. Don't type it, just handwrite it. Don't mark anything out, don't edit it, and write down what it is that you like about yourself. And just that in itself made me like, wow, I'm not so bad after all. If
right?
you write down what it is that you like about yourself. So that, by you saying that, made me think about that, how awareness is critical. That you're aware that you're kind and you have values and you have boundaries, and to have people in your circle or around you that solidifies that. or
Mm,
something else I always say is, don't I always say, associate with individuals, not the yes man all the time, but don't be so condescending. I have
mhm.
someone that's been condescending. I'm like, you know what, I don't. I need to separate myself. You need to take care of yourself, and that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I love, and it takes me to your mission. You have a mission now, is to help individuals liberate, free themselves from beliefs, stories, and identities that limit them, so they can step into their unique greatness.
Yes.
And man, that is amazing to me. So how before we talk about the work you do and the steps you take, how have you transformed limiting beliefs into empowering possibilities? How did you do that?
Like for myself, how
Yeah.
did I? Yes. Uh, and I love you said awareness, because that's actually step one in my
Okay.
7 steps. And
Hmm.
that would be how it was. I think it started back when I was doing my undergrad. And I remember still struggling quite a bit. I've been diagnosed with clinical depression since I was 18, and since I was 7, after that first incident, started
Hmm.
seeing a child psychologist for a bit. And so it's just been a part of my life, that mental health piece that I've struggled with. And I got to the point where I was on the max dose you could take for antidepressants. I was like
Yeah.
young 20s in my undergrad, and I was still so having these obsessive thoughts. And I just went, this isn't just medical. This isn't just biological. Like this, there's other things going on that I have to figure out, or I'm not going to
Yeah.
survive. And it was that
Uh-huh.
realization that,
Yeah.
and yeah, because I had had feelings and ideation of suicide and not wanting to be here, because it just felt hard and heavy.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking, like, I have to get to the figure this out, or this is it. This is not, I'm not going to survive this. And that was like early
Right.
20s. Like, you have your life ahead of you, right? But that
Yeah.
just felt real. And in looking that, I'd cleared out some of the people in my life that were not
Hmm.
healthy for me.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just really stood on my own, which would have been okay, except for like that little spicy drama part of me. When people would ask me out for that 2 years in university, I would say, I'm in a relationship with myself right now. You could just
I
say
love
no,
it.
because they're like,
Yeah.
moonwalk out of the room.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's
Exactly.
okay. But that was honoring to me, right? As it was like, I wasn't just not dating, I was actually trying to develop, like you
Hmm.
said, that therapist. Do you like yourself? Oh my gosh, no, to the point I would hurt myself.
Hmm.
So, and mentally and physically. So I took that 2 years, and I literally have a list of like dates with myself. And I took myself on, like, in a relationship. And even when people say, oh, I went alone, you went with yourself. It's
Uh-huh.
really important to me that I have that friendship, and that I
Yeah.
know I can have my own back. And that's one of the biggest things I do with my clients is, when you get to that point, it's not about teaching you how to speak in a moment, what to do, what you're bound, like, yes, all of that. But when you have that sense of yourself and
Yes.
that relationship,
Yeah.
you got it. You got
I like
yourself.
that.
And so that's really what I spent that time doing. And then I love the story you said too, because then it reminded me when I did my master's in spiritual psychology, one of the things we had to do with the letter to yourself, you were saying, is go
Yeah.
through all these key moments in our life and write out for the girls, it was a herstory of loving, a history
Hmm.
of loving, and it was a
Hmm.
herstory of loving, and it was all these key moments and really getting that awareness about like what was going on at that time that I can look back and see I was hurt, that something
Hmm.
came out of that with that built my belief, my identities, that is limiting me, that is holding me back, and then to actually shift it and
Hmm.
see it from new eyes. We call it reframing,
Yeah.
but to have the awareness piece and then to actually allow yourself to tell a new story,
Mm-hmm.
a story
Change
that
the
works
life.
for you.
Yeah.
Change
Yeah.
the narrative, right?
Yeah.
As Tony says, change your
Mhm.
story, change your life.
Mhm.
It was like, okay, what is truth? Is my interpretation of events or somebody else's interpretation they're giving me? So if that's it, then I can change that narrative. I can tell myself a new story and I can
Wow.
see it. And so it's like, here's the same thing. And what I do is I take people and I'm like, let's look at it on a different side. I'm not invalidating what happened. I'm not invalidating the impact in the story. Let's look at it from a way and tell it in a way that actually serves you versus
Okay.
limits and hurts you.
Okay.
And that was probably one of the biggest shifts as well.
So you
So
call that a history of loving?
history of loving. So
Okay.
instead of seeing all these huge moments in your life that created you to be who you are, instead of seeing them as painful and traumatic and awful, can you like acknowledge them, tell the story, and then choose to write a new story about it, about the
Mhm.
meaning, about what it says about you, about what it says about other humans, what it says about the
Mhm.
world that we live in. And
Mhm.
then I wrote like some affirmations with that to support that new story. And so we
Mm.
did this at each age stage of life in
Uh-huh.
this program. And that was really transformational as far as being able to see that I have the power within to change that story. I
Hey,
can't
Brent,
change what happened, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Give my listeners an example. I like that. Tell a story or something, your history of loving, and walk us through how what needed to be reframed and the narrative that you decided to come up with. Just
Hmm.
one story.
Well,
Doesn't
I
have
mean,
to
I
be
can.
yours. It could be, just a story.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of. What's present is the story I've already told about when I was 6, right? That
Okay.
was one of the stories I reshifted and reframed. And
Okay.
instead of from my current age at that time when I allowed myself to tell the story. It was like
Yeah.
mid 20s kind of age. Instead of being a mid 20-year-old judging that 6-year-old,
Right.
I told the story about connection and about this little 6-year-old who got this experience of being um, having the attention
Mm-hmm.
and shifted it from saying that it didn't have to mean that I didn't matter, but that I could see it as somebody else's pain. I could take it away from what the meaning it had for me. I'm trying to think of something a little less deep and dark
Mm-hmm.
for people that have to shift.
Mm-hmm.
Stories that have come
Mm-hmm.
up um, more recently. I think it would just be like, I don't know, because some of the tools in the work I do with people is getting them to ask like what else could be true here. So for everybody, that story is a little
Yeah.
bit different.
Okay.
Yeah, do you have an example? I can help.
Do you have like since depression's a big thing in the world,
Hmm.
it's taboo. It has been, and people don't want to talk about it, but more people are talking about it.
Hmm.
And you have a bout of it. Is there, and like you aware, you confess, I was clinically
Yeah,
depressed.
diagnosed with clinical depression at 18.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how did you get through that? How did that become okay?
I think just that, Cassandra, exactly what you're saying.
Okay. All
It's
right.
for me, finding self, it's the integration of all parts. And I
Okay.
still struggle with this on parts I'm less proud of. I was just
Yeah.
having a conversation with a coaching client this morning about that. It's like you did what you did and you
Right.
didn't do what you didn't do. Right.
Okay.
So it's that acceptance of like, I truly believe that we are always trying the best we can given what we have at that
Mm-hmm.
moment. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really easy for me to look at my past self now and go,
Yeah.
ugh, and cringe. And I do. Like it's some things I'm like, oh. So it's like deciding, you know what, she was doing the best she could.
Okay.
She was struggling with a need to be like seen and liked. She didn't know how to express herself.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't know how to ask for what she needed and wanted. So instead,
Mm-hmm.
there's this weird, funky, inauthentic, manipulative behavior where I'm
Yeah.
trying to get my way without admitting it's my way, but wanting you to want it to be my way.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and with depression and in those moments, and I've shared with you before we came on camera some of the stuff and the family upset and tragedy that's going on in our lives right now. And I've really had to walk the talk as far as like
Yeah.
acceptance. This
Yeah.
is not how I want to show up. This is
Right.
not what I would prefer to be doing in my life right now. Going through this when I had all these business plans and all these ideas, and I was on this track with my health and my weight, and like, and it's like in those moments, can I still show up for myself?
Mm.
Can I
That's
acknowledge what my body feels, what my
yeah.
heart feels, what my brain's thinking? Can I just
Yeah.
acknowledge it without engaging and believing and
Yeah.
still deciding that I can still tell the story? But what we resist persists. So if
Mm-hmm.
we don't have that acceptance piece, then
Right.
what happens is that we spend so much time and energy resisting, and it just gets louder. I always say if you don't listen, the universe turns up the volume and gives
Mm-hmm.
you a bigger opportunity to hear what needs
Mm-hmm.
to be dealt with and said and accepted. And that
Mm.
actually is, it's almost like you're walking through it. That is one of my steps as well, is that's the first step is awareness of
Okay.
your beliefs, right? Conscious or not, they're going to run your life. Because, we all hear the saying, I believe it because I see it. It's actually you see it because you believe it, right? Your little
Right. Right.
activating system, what am I supposed to look for? And then
Okay.
your identity, because you want to stay consistent with who you say you are. So
Okay.
kindness, right? I said kindness and it had me not leave a situation that was hard because I was trapped in kindness. So your
Okay.
identity, good, bad, or otherwise, if I say I'm that, that's what I will live according to. So step one is that awareness, that beliefs and identity. And I say, who is running you? Because whether you see it or not, it is going to run you. And then
So
step
the
two is
second
that
one,
acceptance.
yeah. So
The
the
second
second
one,
one
yeah,
is
is
belief.
no, the first one is awareness of
Right.
like so starting to understand what your beliefs and identity are.
Right.
The second one is emotional mastery. So
Okay.
really starting to learn how to be with your feelings, how to process them, how to accept them, and so emotional mastery and acceptance. And
Okay.
with that one, we really look at like language and shitting on yourself and
Right.
all of those behaviors that indicate, hey, I just there's parts of me I can't accept, and I'm
Okay.
sorry, but you aren't going to have that integration and authentic self
Mm-hmm.
if there's still parts of myself I'm judging for what I did
Mm-hmm.
when I didn't know what I didn't even
Right.
know,
That's right.
right? Yeah.
Right.
So those are
Okay.
the first two steps. It's almost like you've been given a heads up and you know how to,
Right.
or
Right.
they're just common sense, but we just haven't
Wow.
pulled them out. Yeah.
So you led me into the next question. I wanted to know what the 7-step empowerment process is. So the first one is awareness, and
hmm
second one is emotional mastery. What's your third?
Emotion mastery and acceptance is that second step. And the
Uh-huh.
third one is that clarity of intention. And it's
Hmm.
funny when I ask my clients is how, especially moms and later on in life, when I say, what do you want?
Hmm.
And that clarity of intention is, what outcome do I want? Because we forget that we actually get to design our lives.
Hmm.
We forget that we actually get to say, because you just wake up one day and you're like, how did I get here? And
Right.
without that awareness piece and that acceptance, we don't know.
Right.
Right? So
Okay.
we forget that we can say. So clarity of intention is like, what do you want? What do you want your relationships to look like? What do you want your physical health to be? What do you want, just even the way you show up? Through the
Hmm.
process of who I became after that divorce, when I realized that I didn't love the person I was seeing in the mirror, I didn't even know her. I was like, you said you would never be this, right?
Hmm. Right.
I always say people who love me are how could you're actually how you're amazing, and people who love you say all the loving things.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things, I'm in a relationship now, I'm engaged, in a relationship for just over 6 years, and one of my favorite things is who I am in that relationship.
Okay.
Yes, he spoils me. Yes, we have communication. Yes, we have all the things. And one of my favorite things is who I am. So when people say, how could Sean have left you? How could he divorce you? I say, Sean didn't, Sean wasn't married to the same person Travis gets to date
Mm-hmm.
because
Good.
we aren't the same. So
Right.
that clarity of intention is about understanding like, wow, if I could say this and make this happen, what would I pick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Number 4.
Number 4 is now that we know what we want, it's about constructing empowered identity beliefs and stories. So if I can change the narrative, if it is just about the story, because if there was one truth, why wouldn't we all see it the same way?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if it is about that I can change the narrative, if I get to say who I am,
Right.
regardless of my past, regardless of where I came from, if I get to tell that like who I am, my identity, and I get to decide what I'm going to believe, what I'm going to tell my brain, because it only
Yep.
has to be at least 51%, right?
Right.
Reinforced over time, your brain will seek that evidence. So if I
Mm-hmm.
get to do all that, now step 4 is about constructing empowered beliefs, identity, and stories.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's
Okay.
all what we say anyways, why not tell yourself a story that works?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And number 5.
This one takes a few sessions. It's
Okay.
declaring 100% responsibility.
Okay.
So
For
people talk
yourself.
for everything, your life,
Okay.
your relationships, and this is why it takes some work because often we talk about, especially in relationships, like 50-50. But if
Mm-hmm.
you really think about it, that's kind of weird. Like, where would you put that line? And how would you, oh no, that's your part. And that, oh
Right.
yeah. And
Yeah.
if you declare 100% responsibility, this is your power. This is the
Mm-hmm.
only place that I can actually engage change. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example for that because I like examples. I find that's part the reason my book is part autobiography is like, let's put it on the court. Otherwise, it's just concepts, right?
Right.
So when the divorce was happening, I said to myself, I picked an intention that I would have a family I am proud of, where
Yeah.
everyone was happy, healthy, whole, and complete. And that
Okay.
was my North Star. That was my guiding light throughout
Okay.
all the mess, all the upset, all the fear, all the like story of single mom, what that looked like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was communicating um, with my ex, and we were battling back and forth about it was a schedule thing. And I was like, I don't understand how he can't see this. And he was standing for his ground and said we hung up a couple times and would come back into the conversation. And I just stopped myself like hours later. This has been a process of the day. And I went, a family I'm proud of. Okay,
Mm.
that's my intention. If I'm 100% responsible for that, what does that look like on the court? And I called
Okay.
him back and I said, I don't understand. Can you help me understand?
Okay.
This is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And he explained that when we don't have a schedule, he felt like he was at my beck and call and that he didn't feel
Mm.
respected. Like he had a
Right.
whole story about us not having a specific schedule and me changing things up. And it was, he felt disrespected. So his meaning making, but ultimately he was like, without a schedule, I feel this way.
Okay.
Oh, well, I can do a schedule. So
Okay.
by declaring 100% responsibility and me saying like I want to get this from his
Right.
perspective, it gave
Yeah.
me access to like what was actually turned out to be a very small thing. But
Yeah.
before that point with me like, no, that's your fault. Why don't you understand what I'm going through? And it was a battle. So declaring
Yeah.
100% responsibility is like, what do I need to do? Who do I need to be to have this alter? And I
Mm.
declared that I was responsible for that, not him.
Okay.
And the thing, the word in that matters is declare. I'm not
Declare.
talking about you're at fault, you're to blame.
Right.
Nobody's making it all on your shoulders.
Right.
It's I'm declaring it. I'm owning it. I'm like, out of my way, I got this.
Okay.
Like that's power.
Yeah, it is. Let's give us
Yeah.
number 6.
Number 6 is intentional action and support strategies. So this
Okay.
is where like the toolbox comes into play. Language is a big one here. A lot of times we don't understand or really appreciate the impact of our language
Mm-hmm.
because our brains hear us. So even though, the way we describe something is really powerful, when that divorce is happening, I realized like by saying single mother or divorce, that created a world for people just with those words.
Right. That's
Right.
true.
So, yeah. So, the responsibility of my language as well. With intentional action, nothing happens or will change until we take action. Okay,
Right.
great. I said 100% responsible. I declared that. But if I didn't pick up that phone and take the action
Right.
to say, hey, help me understand,
Right. Okay.
it wouldn't have
Yeah.
happened. And
Okay.
then support strategies, because as we shift and alter things, I always give the example of like creating those neural pathways. It's like being in a big corn maze. And I want to take new action. I've got the beliefs I can, I've got the identity.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I say I am. I've
Mm-hmm.
changed my narrative about some past stories. So I'm, a
Okay.
little bit limitless. And then my brain and my body just go, let's go down this path again. So
Wow.
those support strategies are so important so that I can have the tools, the courage, the resiliency, the focus to actually be able to carve a new path in that corn maze and
Right.
go, go where there isn't one.
Okay.
So those become really important.
Wow. Okay.
And
The
then
last but not least.
is number 7,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the I giggled because this was the one that was actually, as hard as some of these may sound, number 7 was the one that was hardest for me because what your therapist said. Do you like yourself? Number 7 is gratitude and self-appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
It is taking the wins. It is appreciating the progress. It is being willing, because I don't think a lot of people realize that when you withhold your love from yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right, you have to be willing to extend that. And it's ultimately
Mm-hmm.
realizing like I may not be where I am. There may still be some things in my past. I'm like, I am enough for now.
Right.
And
Wow.
one of the things I really believe with that is like we we have story, right? We
Yep.
have our experiences in life. In my opinion, in my life, and I see it in my clients, the things that have hurt me the most are the ways that I have abused, abandoned, mistreated, and neglected myself. I
Mm.
can tell you all the things people did to me. I can tell
Right.
you the hard stuff I went through. And when I
Yeah.
look back, it's like, what gets me is the ways I abandoned, abused, mistreated, and neglected myself.
Isn't that something? That's
Yeah.
powerful. That's powerful. I love the 7-step empowerment process, and in order to sustain it, you have to continue to practice it.
And life gives you so many opportunities.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Exactly.
it's that experience too. I remember I used to always say, I've dealt with this. What is my
Yeah.
problem? And
Right.
it's that layer. It's that layer. I was just talking to a client about this 2 days ago. She said, I don't know why this is bugging me now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about disrespectful behavior from men. And why is this really triggering me now? And I was like, because there were so many layers before.
Yeah.
You didn't even know that that was something that your body didn't like and that your heart felt you didn't deserve.
Mm.
So it just wasn't even recognizable until she
Right.
peeled these layers away.
Wow.
Right. So it's
Wow.
just doing the work. And that's why it's so important that step 7. If honestly, I see it as so much of a throwaway. And at the end of my coaching calls, I always get my clients, I say, what do you want to acknowledge yourself for today? And
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, did they get wiggly? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I get, well, this again, because you
Right.
got to learn to take the win. You got to learn to appreciate the progress.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. And and
Mm,
and like you said earlier, we are quick to the negative. Tell me we
mm,
can rattle that off. But just the
yeah.
acknowledging the gratitude and the self-appreciation is something that we have to think about. So your process was awareness, number one. Number two was emotional mastery, acceptance. Number three was clarity of intention. What's the outcome you want? The four was
Hmm.
like the constructs. The five was the declaring, decree and declare 100% of responsibility. Number six,
Yikes.
right? Number six is intentional action and support strategy. You have to be intentional, but you have to take action in order to do that. And that gratitude and self appreciation. And all of this information is also in your book, correct?
It is, yes.
Okay.
It's laid out as far as with the chapters, the work you do. So
Awesome.
part of the book is self-help. It's my background
Right.
in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is story, is autobiography, because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to ask you to show up and be brave and just look, I'm going to share with you how I've done that, and also to create space, because sometimes my story may not be the exact story, but you may
Right.
resonate with the experience, right? So there's
Exactly.
part story in there, and then there is also a workbook spot, which readers can go to, or listeners, readers in the book, findingselfbook.com, to get the
Mm-hmm.
workbook piece for free. And it
Okay.
has the one thing I love. I'll just show the one thing I love about this book is when I wasn't quite there myself, Cassandra,
Mm-hmm.
I would hear, when you get quotes and they anchor you, you're like, maybe one day, right? Like in the very beginning of my book, the quote says, and I said to myself, I want to be your friend. Myself took a long breath and replied, I have been waiting my whole life for this.
Oh.
And so the book is full of different quotes,
Mm-hmm.
um, just to give people maybe that one word, that one thing that might ground them. Like, I don't quite have it yet, but it resonates. I call it with this like
Yeah.
heartstring,
Yeah.
that's something I want to pay attention to.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
just words anchored me when I couldn't actually believe them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Brandy, how can my listeners get in touch with you?
So on social media, I'm under Finding Self Coach on
Okay.
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And like I said, there is findingselfcoach.com, which is just launching, and Finding Self Book, and that's where they can get more information. The book is available on Amazon and
Okay.
audio on Audible, Spotify, all the channels for that as well. So
Okay. Okay.
I do try to put content on my social media as well for
Mhm.
free, little mindset videos, little tips,
Mhm.
quotes, stuff like those tools. Because as
Yeah.
we have intentional action, it's John Maxwell, failing
Yeah.
forward to success, right? How do I support myself as I try new things? And it feels so like butterfly, and I'm so out of my comfort zone. This isn't me. This isn't that trodden path.
Right.
That becomes so important to support yourself. So I really try to be intentional in the support I give through my social media as well
Yeah.
for
That's
people, those free
that's
resources.
yeah. Thank you so much. This is fabulous. Well, Brandy, we are going to close this podcast. I tell you, this was a lot, and I just want to share with my listeners that this can definitely be life changing if this is something you want. If you're in that space where you're wearing that mask, the mask to survive every day. I know about that mask because I used to wear one all the time. And if you're wearing it, you can't see what your identity is. And if you're wearing it, a lot of people will kind of know you wearing it. They know about
Yeah.
authenticity. They can feel it like something's just not right. But I tell you, listeners, in the event that you felt this podcast was of value and you know other people that it will be a blessing for, please share it. This is going to be on all podcast platforms. And Brandy, we want to thank you. When I say we, my listeners, we all that's listening. And I always tell my listeners, bye for now. God bless you. And Brandy, again, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. What a blessing it was.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye for now.